Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome Mac to the show, where we're going to be talking about self-confidence, the subconscious, healing, and many, many more things. So just an introduction to Mac. Mac is the co-founder and owner of Evolution with Mac and Jen. He's been coaching and training coaches for over 10 years and has had over 10,000 customers. He is a speaker, trainer, coach, detox specialist, and healer. Mac also owns a shop that does auto body, mechanic, and is a used auto dealer. His favorite hobby is extreme backcountry snowmobiling. Awesome. So such a range of things you're doing at the moment, Mac, and interest, and looking forward to this conversation today. So yeah, to start with, it'd be really interesting to hear what got you into coaching and actually healing in the first place, and a little bit about your story that inspired you to get into those areas.
Yeah, first I want to say thanks for having me here. I've kind of been listening to a few things, and even the little short podcast that you do, kind of getting in there. It's always fascinating how you can just continue learning through life. And as I listen to kind of just getting in the zone for this session, I'm listening to it and it's just sparking off things one after another. So I really appreciate the content that you're putting out and what you're doing. I think it really can speak to anybody in a different place with where they're at. And I think it's a blessing to them. So thanks for that. And thanks for having me. So one of the things that got me kind of into personal development in this arena, I had never even heard of, life coaching, law of attraction, any of that stuff until I was after 30 years old. I'd never even heard the terms of energy. And now I'm I do subconscious energy clearing with people. And I have this one extreme over here of trades and hard work and guy type stuff. And then I switch into a healer. So there's a broad spectrum, but what really drove a lot of it was actually a failing relationship. That was the thing where I was watching what I had worked for 8 years just crumbling. And my girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, things have got to change." And it wasn't just hey, some stuff's got to change around here. It was she said, things got to change. And that said, we're done. And I this is not good. And for the next, I actually had a lot to do, and I went and pulled an all-nighter working. And coming out of it, I decided that the only thing that was in my power that nobody could screw with that would fix the problem was if I changed my attitude. That was it. It was you have to change your attitude. And so I made the decision in that moment that no matter what somebody else did, I was going to have a more positive attitude, to the point where I would be doing something and I would have to think, who would have fun right now? This is not fun to me. Who would have fun right now? And be a little kid would have fun, act like a little kid. And so I'm telling myself, I'm trying to solve it as I'm moving, telling myself, act like a little kid. And to kind of backtrack, previous to this 8-year relationship, I had a serious relationship and I got cheated on, just destroyed. And that's where I had to gain a lot of respect for myself. I had to start standing up for myself and doing things much different than I'd done before, and it may not seem like it. Most people that would hear me communicate with me and especially see me, I'm 6'6", 230 pounds. I'm a big dude. But when I started high school, I was 5'2". I was one of the most picked on classes. I grew up out of town, outside of a rural town of 500 people. One of 11 kids, broke, repressed religiously. If you've had it, I've dealt with it. I stuttered horrifically when I was somewhere between 6 and 7, where I couldn't even hardly formulate a sentence. There was stuff that's embarrassing, but stuff like bedwetting, which I think is a confidence issue, where it's just, you get in your own head. I don't know. I can't explain it. Some people deal with it, some don't, but it's embarrassing to even talk about that stuff. But to be able to finally get to a place where I don't care who you are, what you are, I don't care the mistakes I've made. I've lost massive businesses, multi-million dollars in business, and just mistakes, lots of mistakes. I've been addicted to things like porn and masturbation, dealt with that, smoking, drinking, all kinds of stuff. And one of the biggest things I can tell you is, if you don't have confidence, these things will rob you of your life. They just, They just get to you. And it's like, well, why does a man or a woman, I guess, deal with something like porn and masturbation? And I would say someone with lower confidence usually gets lost in it more. Or drinking. Well, sedation, right? Like we're sedating our life away, trying to deal with some emotional baggage that we don't know how to deal with. And often it's just from, I don't necessarily want to say bad parenting, but it's bad parenting. It's like our parents do the best they can. And even with the best parents, as children, we're still going to chase things in our mind. And something might happen. There's genetic stuff that gets passed down that we're not even aware of. There's just so much to know. And you really have to begin to look at life as an experience and understand that the soul doesn't really differentiate the difference between pain or love. Both are extreme emotions that the soul seeks. It's as humans that and I don't know what's going on with my camera right now, but the lighting seems to be freaking out. So just work with me on that.
All good.
But yeah, if you look at it and say the soul knows all, the soul feels good, the soul just wants to experience. And some of the most experiential things you will do are in the highest moments of love and the highest moments of pain. And from my experience, my most clarity came in pain. Right. And it kind of, there's this something I'll refer to my clients, even though a lot of people say, yeah, but you got a great relationship. You got this. Yeah. But I mean, this is 42 years of me working on myself, trying to get somewhere else and feeling like I'm the dumbest I've ever been. And I have the most to learn now. And so you like, and I haven't always felt that way. I've put myself up here, thought, oh, I know how to do this. And it's just like, no, you can't do that. You have to be humble enough to listen to everyone, even the idiot that you don't want to listen to. Everybody's got something to give, even if it's like, thanks for showing me what I don't want. Like there's a sense of being able to find good in everything, but that pain in the moments of the deepest, darkest pain. Ask the question, how do you find the brightest light? If you want to find the brightest light, you go to the darkest place and look, and only the brightest light will stand out. And then once you see it, you can go towards it. So it's a clarifying moment that says, this is what I want. And this is what I'm going to do. And, 3 years ago, like one of my big things is relationship. Over 3 years ago, I found myself physically broken, self-sacrificed, emotionally broken, disconnected completely from who I was. Yet I'm the trainer, the coach, I'm doing all these things and I'm screwed. And one day I cheated on my wife at the time. And it was like, who is this guy? I don't know. And just kind of gave up, just said, okay, God, do what you got to do. And I stumbled onto like some physical stuff, some detox stuff that began to help. I humbled myself, which was big. I've gone through multiple things since then, and just all of a sudden went from this disconnected, like my soul was looking at myself, being like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm out. Just like, that's an animal over there. And began healing that and digging into some past and some childhood stuff and really evolving that character that I felt was really inside me and bringing it out to the forefront. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack inside of that, but I think that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of why I'm so intense on the subconscious mind, because it's just a survival mechanism. The soul is what controls everything. And then also the body is what we use in our reality to be able to create everything that we do and experience. And so you've got kind of this trifecta of the body and then your soul above it, but then also your mind or your subconscious that are all influencing each other. And if the body's wrecked, it will rule over the others, right? Like people that are unhealthy, they're just in straight survival mode. They're not looking to say, oh, what's abundance? How can I take a step further? Most of them, if you say you need more confidence, you need to work on your confidence or do X, Y, Z, they can't. It's like what they need is actually to fix their body. And there's a mindset piece inside of that sometimes takes 2 years for somebody to get from the couch to the gym of just, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And just beginning to roll into something. You know what I said? I overcame the addiction of smoking. That was a 2-year process. To everybody else, it looked like one day. But I just said, you know what? This doesn't represent who I want to become. I don't see myself as the person I want to be. I don't see this in my picture. So, okay. And I use, I say God, people can use that however they want, universe, whatever. I was like, all right, I don't know how this works. I'm not going to quit today, period, because it serves me. So I find all the good about my problems of how it serves me. Then I love myself for it. Then I say, but I want it to end. So show me the path of how I get this to end. And about 2 years after I did that, one day I was sitting there. It was just like this thought came in my mind. You have an opportunity today to quit, or we don't know when the next opportunity is going to come. It's your choice. I was like, shit. All right, I'm done. That was about 6 years ago. Doesn't ever come back since then. So it's certainly a process to it of being able to get to that point. But I don't know. Do you have any questions with any of that?
No, I like what you said in terms of, it actually appearing like, to people it took, oh, it looked like you did it in a day, but actually it's taking you years to do. It's like, it's not an overnight process. And it sounds like, yeah, you've been in a place where you've had to do a lot of healing. And I wanted to touch a little bit more on like the healing work, and kind of like the achievers perhaps we're talking to out there, who are a bit like, right, let's go, 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 go. Let's like try, and maybe it's, you've got a good attitude, which is like, let's try and go and change our lives. But actually we're like pushing to side some of the things, like some of that underlying needs, maybe like inner child work, maybe there's some stored emotions, like you touched on earlier, about like things we've inherited in our body as well, and that side of things. So just, can you touch a little bit more on the importance of, perhaps there is like moving forward and taking action, but actually the importance of healing as well alongside that?
Yeah. So, like I said, the healing subconscious energy clearing is kind of one of the specialties where we'll use a technique where we can actually pinpoint triggers. And when we say triggers are emotions, right? Like, and they could be positive or negative. Typically we focus on the negative.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is like a phrase that if I say that phrase, it triggers an emotion that actually weakens your physical system. And that way we know, like, okay, there's a problem here. There's a block. If you were to say, I've made it to $100,000 or $200,000 in income, and I want to go I want to double it or something like that. A lot of times people be like, well, can I get a new job? Can I start this business? What can I do? And then they begin to go after it, but then they begin to doubt, well, what if this happens? What if I lose this job? And then they focus on the lack of it. And then the focus on the lack of it becomes the new why, which means that what are they going to create? Lack. Or if somebody starts to begin to be successful and they jump up, have you ever seen somebody jump up and then crash harder? Because their focus is, I want this, all this positive momentum, everything else. And then they get it. And because they don't have a bigger dream, what happens? They begin to focus on losing what they've gotten because it's not programmed in them. Their past is more prominent than their future. And one of the things about that is making sure that you have a big enough dream to where it is always pulling you in. However, if you're focusing on the dream and it's causing you to feel lack or disbelief, you can't focus on it. You have to throw it out. So there's this kind of, if let's say gamification of it, where and if you were to kind of draw this out, you would have like, the dream over here needs to be so big that you can see it in the entire screen, right? Like that's how big the dream needs to be. Then your goal needs to be like this big, right? And a lot of people, their goal in life, the next 5 to 10 years is so big. It's the only thing they can see, and they put it right in front of their face and they can't even see their dreams. So if the dream is out here and then the goal is here and you're way over here, but people start here and they put this big goal right here, And so it blocks the vision of the dream. So once they achieve it, they're trashed because they got what they wanted, and now they have no more driving focus, no more driving energy, pull. And you're familiar with Napoleon Hill, correct?
Oh yeah, I think yeah, love that book.
Yeah, most everybody should be, I think. One of the things Napoleon Hill said was after 18 years well, let me back up. He was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie for 20 years to research the most successful people and figure out how they did it. Like even himself, he's like, I want you to figure out how I did it and then tell everybody
I loved it.
secretly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says, after 18 years, I almost missed it. And the key thing was to have a dream and get a burning desire for its achievement. And there's a lot of information in there that I've kind of been able to get a little access to that's a little different. Like there's recordings that weren't published, different stuff that my mentor actually had hands-on access to. And so I've got a little more information than a lot of people with Napoleon Hill. And the reality is there's this thing that happens, and there's this dream, and people will either attach to the dream, and then it's like a lottery mentality, and it never works. Almost never. Well, except for that 0.00001 of people, but they usually crash and burn too. But you have this dream, but you have to be able to get in the dream, get excited about it, get all this energy for it, and then let it go. Because if you hang on to it, it's too big for you. You don't know what's required. And if you hang on to that thing, eventually you're going to think, excuse me, in 5 years, if I can, get a relationship, get the great job, get the family, get the cars, get all this stuff, and everything's going to be great. You can't see that far. That's a hypothetical situation. And if that's what you can see, you're also limiting yourself to an abundant universe that can give you so much more than you can even understand. And so it's important that you have it to pull you that way, but that you can also separate yourself from it that says, this is what needs to be done today. And so there's this process that I do that says, here's the dream. Here's your 2 to 5 year goal. We pretty much know what's required, but we could bring in things that we don't understand. So we focus on this, but we're not so attached that we try to force it. Then there's right in front of you that's very small, it's a little pinpoint, that is your sweet spot goal. That sweet spot has to be 100% belief that you can achieve it, or 99, 98%. If it gets too low, what begins to happen is you begin to think of the lack, and then you set timelines on it, and the timelines screw people. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, you need to have a timeline when you're going to do this. Well, yeah, timelines are one place and one place only on your action of an inspired goal, of an inspired, well, let me back up. So you have a sweet spot that says, yes, I know I can do it. 6 months-ish, right in there. But there's no real timeline. It just says, I believe it's going to take about this long, but it could be faster, it could be longer, but it kind of gives you an idea. You back up and you go, okay, so to get to there, what needs to happen? Well, I need to make a phone call to this person to see if they're in. Okay. Now, when are you going to do it? Well, I can do it in 30 minutes. Okay, good. Set a timeline on that action. But if you set a timeline that says, I'm going to hit this going in 6 months, right? Well, what if somebody walks into your life tomorrow, bringing you everything you need to make it happen in 30 days? You won't see it because you think it's going to take 6 months, right? Or you're like me and you'll procrastinate. I've got 6 months.
And
So what do you?
So what you're saying is putting like a deadline on the action items rather than the goal towards it. So like maybe you got your weekly goals or your daily things that you're doing towards it, and you got a timeline on them. But the thing in the future you're working towards is you don't put like a definitive timeline on that.
No, you can kind of have timelines on them, and sometimes we have timelines that are imposed by, let's say someone's going to school to become a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an imposed timeline. However, if the dream is to be a massively successful doctor, does it matter? No. Like, you think about somebody like Michael Jordan. He wanted to be a successful basketball player. How many times was he rejected before he got the yes? Because his dream was to do this. So nothing took him off the course, even though he got no. So a doctor might come in, they want to be the best, but in order to be the best, they need to have some more trials. They need to be kicked out, something happen, struggles, and that's what drives them to be the best. So you kind of have to understand there's an attachment and a detachment. But that's kind of the process of, you've got your actions that should be inspired based on your sweet spot, right? You've got the sweet spot that is inspired on your big box goal, which is your anywhere from 2 to 10 years, maybe 20 years. It just depends on who you are. And that goal that you have is a very direct, this is where I'm going. And as you move, they all continue to get bigger. And then your dreams, they kind of have that energy that continue to pull you forward, even though you're not attached to the outcome. So if I say I want an amazing relationship, I know I'm going to get it. How long is it going to take? I have no freaking clue. I don't know what I need to learn, who I need to become in order to get that time. I don't care if it takes 2 days, 2 years, 20 years. I don't care. As long as I get it, it doesn't matter. And, this is something like, I'm not just saying this, I had a marriage less than a year ago on, July 13th, my marriage ended, within 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I met Jen. She's freaking amazing. And it's just blown my mind on what I didn't even know I needed.
Awesome.
Like I was just, I thought this is what I wanted, but I said, you know what? I just want the feeling. And where this comes from is says, I want my relationship to go to the next level. And so that's what I focused on, was the end result. And guess what? God said, well, this woman's not going to get you there. Got her out. Okay. I'm focused on the end result. Within 48 hours, I was in a notepad, pen and paper, writing out, this is what I want, right? Like this is what I tell my clients to do. This is what I want. Within a few days after that, granted, I don't recommend this for everybody in the beginning, because they're hurt, and you shouldn't be out communicating with people if you're hurt and running your mind. But I know, like, I hired a coach immediately to help me through it. I started working on myself immediately, trying to heal, because it was painful. It was extremely painful. But I had the clarity to say, I'm going to go have some good experiences meeting some women. And so I just went out and had coffee, right? And I'm not looking for anything. I wouldn't screw them. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. I'm just, so I moved through that. So there's this healing process. And through that process of healing, I'm using other people that can see what I can't see. And I'm attacking my subconscious, because my subconscious is in relation to my physical ability to create. And as I'm creating, if there's those triggers, those emotional triggers that happen and weaken my body, what am I going to attract?
Yeah. What you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so important to continue working on this as you evolve into this different person of saying, okay, here's the truth. If I think I know what I want, there's a feeling in everything else. Can I be it? Well, if my subconscious is programmed that says, the only way you get what you want is if you fight for it, what are you going to do? Somebody brings you something perfect. You're going to fight for it.
You make it harder. Yeah.
Way harder.
Find the hardest possible way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, have you experienced that?
Yeah, totally. Many times it's, it's causing like things like burnout, and then doing the wrong things. And it's actually sometimes, when I've been in that better state, I can give an example in like business. It's like following a system that didn't, I've invested a lot, like I know you have as well in yourself, like coaches and things like that, following something for your business that just didn't feel good. And it's just like work. And then it's just like actually stepping back. What do I want? And then I started coming at, I want to help people. I want to share content on this, and this. And then suddenly started going out on that feeling. And then miraculously, you get like 2 people coming to you and be like, I want to sign up with you. So it was like focusing on that, and then not being right, the exhaustion all the time, all that work. So yeah, totally can relate in a business perspective in that way.
Yeah. And one of, it's, there's, so when I was hold up. My previous company with my ex-wife was a big coaching company where we trained coaches. We had a lot of clients. We specifically worked in the arena of subconscious energy clearing. So we would find these energetic blocks in the subconscious. We could actually test them, and those ones that weaken your system, we test them. We use a technique and we clear them. So as soon as we clear them, then we can retest them and they're gone. And when you do this, you're essentially raising someone's frequency so that they can attract a lot quicker. And that was the whole idea there. It gets a little complicated because what people tend to do is they want to be a victim. Oh, I've got blocks. I need clearing. And they focus on it so much that their why becomes the problem instead of their dream. And so I don't like talking about it too much. It's more like, you tell me what your dream is, what your goal is, and where you want to go. Then I'll show you where the blocks are. Right. But if you can't tell me, if you're coming to me being like, oh, I've got problems, I'm like, yeah, you got a problem because your thinking sucks. Like, what's your dream? What's your desire? And if you can't answer that, we're not going to multiple, like we're still at addition, 2+2. Like, we need to get the desire. What did Napoleon Hill say? You have a dream and get a burning desire for its achievement. When you have that, you will find the answers. You will solve the things. You will manifest the things you need to solve your problems. Right. Like, it's like I had a physical issue that was happening. I stumbled onto a detox. I wanted to know what it was. I became a specialist. I went through it myself, instantly changed everything in my life. Like, I started putting on muscle mass again that I was trying to do and it wasn't working. My ex-wife at the time, she was extremely overweight and she lost a ton of weight when she did it. So it's like, okay, well, this is a thing that I believe in because I focus on raising someone's vibrational frequency in all areas, in their body, in their spirituality, in their relationships, and in their money. So there's this process that we look at, but based on what? Based on the dream, based on the desire. So we have that first, and that's where we go to. And as I go through this, all of a sudden I lose my relationship. It destroys my business in the process. I lose everything. I got to kind of backtrack to a few different things. And as all this chaos is happening, I'm just focused on the end result. Focus on the end result. This is, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm shifting from kind of the hustle and everything else of destruction and everything else, but it's like a fire. Fire wipes things out and destroys things for new things to grow. The faster you're willing to let go of pain and let go of those other things, usually the faster it'll happen. But we want it immediately, especially in our world today. And it's kind of like, well, what if we just take the timeline and stretch it out a little bit? It removes the pressure, right? And so I've got debt from a divorce, these different things, but yet I've got a connection over here that's been building and building. And now my conversations in a different world are about billions of dollars, not millions, billions. Like, I'm entering a world of multi-millionaires, billionaires, and it's fun and it's fresh. And yet at the same time, I'm still working in this world. But I'm not focused on like, oh, I've got all this pain and everything else. Okay, this is what I have to do. And as long as I'm taking the action to do these things, I feel good about it. I can cover my expenses. I can continue paying this stuff down regardless. But the reality is in 10 minutes in a deal over here, somebody says yes, it eliminates all that. But if I was too caught up in this would never become available, ever. And with that, there's a financial pressure that people need to be aware of. And
Yeah,
a lot of
let's talk a little bit more about that, because I know it's a challenge that a lot of us, including myself in the past, has challenged with. Like, it's like, well, I've got all these dreams and invest in myself, but I got to pay the bills, I got to do this job, but that's what I really want to do. It'd be really useful to kind of touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is where I think the big thing is going to come in the conversation around compound interest. How can you put an effort that compounds and makes more? Like, one of the things you're doing is you have this podcast, and in the beginning, there's not much traction, right?
Nope.
But as it goes, it builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden, one day, it just like takes a massive step. It like quantum leaps, and then another day in the future, it'll quantum leap again, as long as you stick to it. And what I see a lot of times is somebody's like, they're in pain, they're looking for a solution, and they get this shiny object type syndrome. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to join this company. I'm going to make sales. And I'm like, okay, good. Okay. But what's paying the bills? What evidence can you prove of what pays the bills? And I often see someone like walk away from a job that's paying the bills because they get this idea that they're going to be able to go make sales. And it's like, you have no idea what you're doing. Continue paying the bills, find a way to reduce your expenses. I do not focus on budgeting. I don't necessarily focus on reducing, but what I am focusing on is the energy. And sometimes the reduction of things raises the energy that then creates success and success. When it comes to energetic shifts to be able to create or manifest things that you can't see, let's say, like manifesting is a weird word, but it's thinking about it from the perspective of, if you want to tell me you can manifest, try manifesting something that you've never done before. Like bringing someone into your picture that completely changes your life that you never saw coming. If you can tell me that story, then I'll listen to your ability to do whatever. And it's a word that's in my industry that I use, but the reality is, do you really know how to do it? Because when a woman walks into your life that blows your mind, that you never even thought or imagined you could have, maybe you're doing something. If you create a situation that actually puts cash in the bank account, maybe you're manifesting something. So it's a tricky conversation in that, because there's just a lot of foo-foo bull crap out there. But when it comes to money, if you are in financial scarcity, you're not manifesting. Never going to happen. Your best idea is to go get plus one. Spend less than you make. That is number one. Bring in the income, spend less than you make, then begin to isolate time away from that to go make more. Time to work on yourself, time to get your energy right, whatever it is. A lot of people will put all this time into money and chasing business, and they'd be better off putting it into spirituality, into fixing themselves. Because when the mind is clear, the mind is better. But at the same time, you can't get spiritually connected if you're scared about putting food on the table, right? Like, not going to happen. And so one of the key things is to look at it and say, what can I cut? What can I remove? If I have financial scarcity, what can I remove? And financial scarcity isn't just from the people on the bottom. Financial scarcity comes from people, multimillionaires as well. Yeah. And sometimes worse with the more you have, because you're going to have to give up more. Right. And you work so hard and got these things, like it sucks. I've been there. And so just to give a reference to that, like I was in a company where we lost about $5.5 million, down to the point where everything was repossessed, like whatever. And something that wasn't supposed to happen, I get a phone call as I'm hustling work for like ridiculously cheap amounts of money, and the power got shut off. You want to talk about a low point? That sucks. And having to literally pick up the phone and beg for money and work a deal with, luckily my brother took care of me at the time, and work a deal with him, and then taking care of him, and then rebuilding and going all the way back up. Right. So it's a challenging thing to do. So I'm not trying to negate somebody at the bottom or at the top, but the reality is, if somebody says, oh, I want financial freedom, I'll just say, okay, well, go give up all your shit and become a beggar on the street. You have financial freedom. And they're going, well, that's not what I want. Well, that's what you said. So get clear on what you want so that we can actually go there. Napoleon Hill said, get a dream and have a burning desire for its achievement. If you tell me financial freedom, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a word where what you're really seeking emotionally is some release in here, right? Like that's what they're seeking. So, okay, just spend less than you make and be clear about it. Stop breaking your own commitment, spend less than you make. How do you feel? You feel good, because end of every month you have no pressure. So if you can begin to do that, now you begin to work into the compound interest. If you continue the process of spending less than you make month after month after month after month after month after month after month, then all of a sudden you have more money energetically stacking in a bank account. But if you have scarcity, what most people will do is they'll save up some money. Then they'll be like, oh, I need to do this thing. I need to do this deal. And they spend everything that they took instead of investing it. And this has been a challenge my entire life. Like I said, I grew up in a like mobile home, like a trailer house type thing in the middle of nowhere, and had to teach myself, what's required. You have to be putting money aside, and you have to be putting some money into something stable, or sometimes taking risk and building businesses and getting people that can work for you so that your time isn't so limited. But if you're trapped inside your own limited time and there's nothing out there working for you possibly to make you money, and it takes time, you have to have delayed gratification. But when you begin to put money somewhere where it can grow, even at a very, very small amount, but it compounds month after month or year after year. It's insane what can be done. And to give a perspective, there's guys out there, and it's a little harder to get in on the low end, but you can still find your way into all deals if you're willing to just let yourself find your way. So first thing is, mentally, you have to say, I can figure it out. I don't know how, but I believe I can. If you can't in some way conceptually do that, then you're just not in the right conversation. There, I don't know why you're here. But I would assume anybody that's here is here because they've got an idea that they can better their life and that there is a way. And so they're opening their minds enough to say, okay, maybe there's something here. And so when you open your mind and it's like, okay, how's this work? And then all of a sudden I get introduced to a Forex trading thing that pays 3% a month guaranteed. Okay, that's good money. That's ridiculous. It's like 100 grand, pays you $3,000 a month. Okay, now maybe not everybody has 100 grand laying around or whatever, but just consider this. If you take 100 grand and compound it month after month, in 7 years, it turns into $1 million, little under 7 years. In the next 20 years, it will turn into $1 billion. If you back it up and just say, okay, well, what about 10 grand? Okay, if I take 10 grand in 7 years, it'll be 100 grand. 20 years after that, it'll be $1 million. So in 27 years, you could take as little as $10,000 and turn it into $1 million. And then at $1 million every 2 years, it doubles. So, the reality is when people are looking at different things, they're thinking, oh, I could never do that. But it's the ability to set something aside and let it go. And when I take my money and I set it aside into an investment, it becomes no longer my money. There's like two identities that I have. One is Mac as a business, and one is Mac as an individual. And Mac as an individual is the boss, and he takes money and puts it over here for the future and doesn't touch it ever again. And I've had deals go south. I've had deals go up. But because of that, that is what has brought me into the world of having these basically $1 billion conversations. Getting to the opportunity to meet high level people and grow, and just being brought into circles that I never imagined at one day as a little kid that thought, it'd be really cool to grow up and maybe own my own business. I grew up in the auto shop, heavy equipment as well, started running things like backhoes and excavators and stuff at 9 years old, and just got really good at it. And I figured, oh, that's what I'm going to do. But then I'd see more and I would see more. So putting yourself in environments to see more is important. Spending less than you make, right? And then being able to understand compound interest. And you will never understand this conversation in one shot. You just won't. And so it's important that you continue to engage and learn the ways of how this works. And so I'm going to give a big picture. I have opportunity to put money in a investment, right? And they will actually insure it. So there's no way I could lose my money. The money's insured, corporate backed, everything else. And then I put it over here and it makes me on the low side, like probably on the lowest side, 20% a year. Most people think, 3 to 6% is good. Like if you can do that or better, you're doing great. And that's ridiculous. That won't even keep up with inflation. So there's the world of the norm over here that a lot of people exist in. You have to break free of that. You have to think there is so much more abundance in life. God, the universe is providing it to you, and you need to go towards that. But you have to create your own internal disciplines. See, mine, we go back to the healing, the childhood stuff, or even past stuff. If you go back in my genealogy far enough, there was some crap that happened with one of my ancestors where they were basically the financial manager of a kingdom somewhere, I think, north of the UK, probably Sweden or something. I can't remember exactly. What's that?
Maybe Scotland.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's some that goes through Scotland and all that, right? And but there was some political crap going on. Maybe it was legit, maybe it wasn't, but one of my ancestors got called out, thrown under the bus for financial stuff. And maybe he made the mistake. Maybe it was on him. Maybe he was just used as the dummy to get thrown under the bus because somebody didn't like him. I don't know, but there was definitely some massive financial struggle that I can tell you there's something connected to that I've had to overcome. Right. So it's like what it is exactly, I don't know, but there's just like, you can count the way it works, whether, even though my family's had money, I'm looking at this like, no, I'm going to break free of this so far and above that I never have to deal with this again, ever, or my kids, period. Right. So it's looking at that and saying, what do I have to heal here? But I have to go more with like, what have I created in my life? And when my parents are fighting over money, yelling and screaming, you know, my mom blows every dollar, every penny, everything, so you have this behavior. My dad's over here stashing money that I don't even know about until later in life. I don't even know he's saving money or doing anything, but yet now he's so scared to invest in something that I can't get, I could retire him tomorrow if he would just listen, but he won't. He's in too much scarcity because he has no dream. Right. So this idea, it says, get the dream first. Then you can begin to uncover the triggers and the stuff you need to heal. In the last year, one of the biggest things that really came up was thinking my mom was always loving and supporting. I always thought that, my parents are messed up, but my mom always loved me. She's the most loving person ever. Yeah. But one of the times I got attacked by the school system, and she was there consoling me, and I was like, it broke me. Like I was tears in my eyes, and she was there consoling me. And I always thought that was just my mom being loving or whatever. And then I looked at it again, and it was like, wait a minute. Had the school done that to my kids, I'd have been throwing these pieces of crap out the window. Like I wouldn't be consoling my kid. I would be standing up for my kid. I would have been like tearing down the other individuals that were so far off base, it wasn't even funny. So it's like, is my mom really loving? No, she's weak. And having to face that sometimes is something, it's uncomfortable and we don't want to face it. But the reality is, no, she has to be weak in order for me to get better. I need to understand that my internal self, childhood, whatever, has to find its path to be healed through that, to take control of the stance that says, no, you can do more. Stop looking for people to attack you and start looking for God to support you. And every conversation you have inside this chase for your dreams will expose that which is holding you back. But you have to be honest. One of the biggest things is just getting honest. And a person cannot truly be confident if they have lies.
Especially for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's
yeah,
what
there's
Tony Robbins always says, that it says, progress, he says, the truth will set you free. I know that's a very common one. And he said that's where the progress starts with as well, from the truth. So definitely relate to that point. And in my own experience as well, it's like, well, I did that much. And then even when you're like exaggerating things, and I personally found it's just like, it's not helped me. It's just like, I'm almost dismissing myself and what I've really done. And that hurt my relationship with me. I don't know if you found that as well, by lying about yourself, or you've known others as well. Have you found that about lying about yourself?
Yeah, in any lie whatsoever, and also even though I use techniques, a lot of different techniques, there's a lot of cool stuff on energy clearing. A lot of people are using this new like drug type ayahuasca stuff, and I'm a little cautious of that, because somebody that's broken will not heal themselves on a hypnotic journey or anything. A person that's willing to actually be humble and exposed, maybe they can. I don't know for sure, but the reality is, if you want to heal faster than anything else, expose your lies. It will energetically, instantaneously remove them. And whether somebody believes in Jesus or not, but that's kind of the whole, like, if you relate to that, it's like, okay, well, how do you get to grace? Just look there. Done. Like, it's commanded. God gives grace. And there's a statement that I like to remind myself of, that says, God's grace is God's grace. It is absolute. Only we negate it and hold ourselves back. But if we just expose our crap and we humble ourselves to the point of saying, hey, I've made a mistake, and the world will kind of hold you in this perspective that says, Well, let me give you an example. If I make a mistake, let's say I do something stupid. Now, do you think I was thinking let's say I throw a rock and it goes through a window. Do you think I was thinking I'm going to throw this rock through the window? Now I'm embarrassed. I don't want to have to deal with it. I could easily just walk down the street and no one would know I did it, who knows? Like, but it would be a lie. But this thing is like the world wants to say, oh, you're a bad person for doing that. Oh, and this can go for, like I said, I've cheated, I've stole, I've done all kinds of dumb stuff. And the reality was, as soon as I did it, I was convicted of the guilt of the consequence. I wasn't convicted of it prior to doing it. So there's a little bit of innocence in our mistakes that we don't understand. And if we would give ourselves a little bit of compassion to say, hey, like, if you knew better, you wouldn't have actually done it. You didn't actually know better, and you need to give yourself some grace. And when you give yourself some grace, you can expose it and free yourself of that. Just like what you said with Tony Robbins said, like the truth will set you free. And there's so many things where, coaching someone, they'll tell me about this thing and whatever, and they don't want anybody to know. And I'm like, just go tell them, just expose it. Like, oh, I can't. And I coach them through it, and eventually they expose it. And within 6 months, they're telling everybody about it, and they're completely free from it. And now not only are they free from it, but now it's empowering them to do something different, and they're giving themselves grace, and their energy goes from here to here. Like I said, nothing will heal you or energetically raise your vibration as fast as exposing a lie, and just being honest. And it comes down to those little things, the little things as far as exaggerations. It's like saying, how much money did you make? And people will be general, well, 6 figures. What does that mean? And when I start to call people out on, no, exactly how much, well, I don't know. Well, then how do you know the score? If you don't know the score, you're not winning. It's another kind of like financial thing. Like if you want to win in money, know the score.
Yeah. We live in that world of, and I've been caught up in it myself. Like it's when you're, especially with like the social media, it's like you're trying to impress people and grab their attention. It's like, I've done this, this, and this. And then like when I've started to work more closely with someone, like when I've worked with like businesses or whatever, or collaborated with someone, you kind of see like that's kind of the fancy front sometimes, and actually what's going on behind the scenes. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of money on personal development. I've spent a lot of money in sales training and different things. And the most recent, well, one of the most recent ones was there was a claim. This guy, these people, like I train these clients, I train these clients, and this one made $27,000 their first month in 3 weeks in the business. This one made 280,000 in their first 6 weeks of the business. And so I'm like, okay, and the guy seems honest and everything, but it's all a marketing ploy. The reality was this person made 27 or 280,000, or no, it was 240,000 in, let's say 6 weeks, but it wasn't. It was for the next year. That's what they pulled in. Or the 27,000 was for the next 3 months. So they brought on 3 clients for 6 months. I'm like, that's not 27,000. You got to divide that by 6 months or whatever it is. So they made like $3,000 this month, but you're promoting it as 27,000. That's a lie to me. That's a marketing sales tactic to get people to buy in on motivation, not truth. And so when I make my sales, when I communicate to people, I lose a lot of deals, but I'm like, I don't care. I don't want somebody hyped up coming in. I want somebody to come in and get the result. I don't want to play this game. I don't want to have to uphold this, because what happens is somebody comes in hyped up, then they come in and they fail because they're coming in on hype instead of truth, and they fail, and then they attack. And I don't, it takes energy. It sucks the life out of you. I'm like, no, if I give my word, I want to keep it. And if I fail to keep it, I want to own it, even if I'm extremely embarrassed for it. And that's a place where I can wake up every day and say, I'm going to go again. I'm going to keep going.
And that's where things like I don't know if the term like sort of like, well, we probably have like the imposter syndrome and stuff. I think that's kind of that stuff kind of made worse. And yeah, I've had those internal struggles. Like I'll get you to there, and it's that kind of not genuineness. Or I don't know if that's the right term, but it's like the honesty that I didn't even feel in myself. And I think people like who I've spoken to know if they're being honest or not, but it's just sometimes we get caught up on all the information we've heard and the ways we should be doing things.
Yeah, that's a good and a very interesting thing of the imposter syndrome. Like what if somebody sees the real side of me type
Mm,
of the thoughts in our mind. And
mm,
and I think that's two-sided. Some people need to fear that because they're lying, right? Like it should convict them. However, from my experience, there's more people stuck in imposter syndrome because they don't genuinely have support. They're in the battle of what the world is thinking because, and it's like well, my family, let's just use my family. I'll throw them under the bus for now. So,
okay.
um, they, they look at some of the stuff I do and they think I'm crazy, and I'll tell them what's going on and I want to share it with them, but then they have to have their say. We're all opinionated, very, very stubborn and opinionated. So the they'll want to have their say and everything else, but then they'll try and like tear you down, and they're not really trying to tear you down. They're just trying to hold themselves up. Because if you're over here crushed, if I'm over here crushing life and they're not, they're judging themselves. And so then they have a tendency to justify their position by trying to drag you, like trying to hold you down. Oh, you really think that's going to work? Well, what about this? And they begin questioning you. And what they're really doing is questioning themselves. On the other hand, when you look at families that are wealthy and they've got good energy and they've got all the right things happening for them, what typically tends to happen is they don't care. They're
Mm,
content. So they support even your crazy ideas. They're like, well, go try it, see what happens. I don't know. Maybe you pull it off. I don't know if I could, but you should go find out. And they're more looking for your success than their own personal justification. So when I'm coaching people and trying to help them through this feeling of imposter type thing, I just have to really get into the facts of, okay, can you do this? Are you capable of doing this? Have you helped somebody? Do your clients have results? Okay, then how the hell could you be an imposter?
mm,
And
yeah.
they're like, well, I just feel like it. I understand that you feel like it, but I'm giving you the reasons of why you don't need to feel that way. And I'm going to stand behind you and say, hey, what you're doing here is pretty cool. What you're doing here is helping people. You don't need to be an imposter. You're always going to have to be humble. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to feel like you don't know enough. But what if you did know enough? Then what would be the point of being here? Like, I believe that God sent us here to gain knowledge, to be a little more like him, or we're created in his image. And that's what I believe. And so the journey here is for me to gain as much knowledge as possible, knowing that I know nothing. I can't explain how the universe works. Like none of us can. Like, in fact, all of our knowledge combined, we can't explain it.
Mm,
So why should I feel like I need to know everything? So I go through this deductive process of just being like, look at the truth. Like none of us, like if you're an imposter, I'm an imposter, and so is everybody else. Can you do good? Can you give? Yes, go give.
love that spin on it. So, Matt, we could, to be honest, there's so many more things I could go into deep detail with you on. And, I see you on Facebook with Jen, and there's huge amounts of value there. Just before we sort of like wrap up, is there like maybe a final summary point you'd like to share with us? And also, where can the listener find out more about you, or if they want to hear more from you?
Yeah. So, there's, I'm just going to kind of always go back to that point of, like Napoleon Hill said, get a
Mm,
dream and have a burning desire for its achievement. I do understand that that's easier said than done,
mm,
but put it in your mind that says, okay, I need to get a dream and get a burning desire for its achievement, which means I actually take time to sit down and write. One of the most powerful things you will do is in silence, especially in our world today of chaos and distraction, is to actually sit down and scribble out, this is what I want. And a lot of times it's easiest to do the physical stuff first, of like, if money wasn't an option, what would I buy? What would I do? Who would I be? And you just write with no attachment of what that is. And as you're doing it, you should begin to generate these feelings and emotions. And it's those feelings and emotions that are going to drive you. And so you want to let those build and get bigger and bigger. If you can't, there could be some physical issues, so pay attention to that. Maybe your dream is to get your body right, or whatever it is, but just allow yourself to let go and build on your energy and be expansive and gain that dream and knowledge. And then as far as, getting in touch with us, we're still in the works of building this company evolution. Got a makeshift website, but we do have a weekly call that we do with our members, and then we're growing that again. Like I said, in the past years, I kind of lost everything, so it's been a slow process of rebuilding. But we've got several members in that membership where we have a weekly Zoom and getting with that. I'd say the easiest thing to do is just look us up on Facebook. That's going to be probably the easiest way to go. Jen Lockhart or Mac Grant, and find us on there. And then we'll have a link to like the membership, I think, in the description on this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's going to be the starting point. There's not a lot more. We're working on getting more content out, but it's just the beginning of the beginning. It's the exciting time, and definitely the cheapest time to get access. That's for sure. Like, I've been at very, very high levels, and we're back down here. So, and I give people the opportunity that says, hey, if you're willing to join us when you can't see what's going to happen yet, it's cheap, and I will guarantee that for life, that price for life. So it may be of benefit for people to get access to that. And yeah, does that cover?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be sure to link that up. A huge amount of value. I think for me, one of the key quotes you said today, if you want to heal quicker, expose your lies. I think that's something I'm going to be stapling down, but there's so many takeaways for you to take it away from today. And if you want more from Mac and Jen, who's been a previous podcast guest, and like Mac gives a ton of value, we'll link that Evolution membership as well, so people can find out more about that. So once again, Mac, a big thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you as well. Thanks for what you're doing. And, like, I love it. You got great energy. Keep doing it. You're changing lives, man.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you're in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.